I got back from the supermarket and my clothes were on the floor. My daughter-in-law smiled and said I was making space for my things. I answered, "Then I'm going to make space too in this house. Without you." That smile disappeared in seconds. My hands were shaking holding the grocery bags. Tomatoes, a whole chicken, fresh tortillas. Everything I had bought to make the meal my son Samuel loved so much since he was a kid. I went up the stairs slowly because at 68 my knees just aren't the same. And when I reached the second floor, my heart stopped. There thrown in the hallway like old rags was all my clothes. My blouses, my pants, my Sunday dresses, the knitted cardigan my husband gave me before he died. Everything was wrinkled, trampled, piled against the wall like it was trash. And the door to my bedroom, the one that had been mine for 40 years, was wide open. Inside, my daughter-in-law Valerie was moving hangers around as calm as someone in their own home. She was hanging her expensive dresses in my closet, arranging her high heels on my shelves, humming a song as if nothing was wrong. The bags fell from my hands. What are you doing?" My voice came out broken, barely a whisper. She turned around and smiled. That smile I will never forget. Cold, calculating, victorious. "Oh, Rose, you're back. I was just making space for my things. See, this bedroom has better light, you know, and the closet is so much bigger. Samuel and I need more space now that we're thinking about having a baby." I felt like a knife had been stabbed into my chest. My bedroom, the bedroom where my husband and I slept for 35 years, where he died holding my hand just 3 years ago, where I still kept his watch on the nightstand because I didn't have the strength to give it away. "This is my house," I said, and my voice started to get stronger. "My bedroom." Valerie let out a little laugh, a laugh that made my blood boil. "Oh, Rose, don't be like that. We all live together, right? Besides, you're older now. The downstairs bedroom is more comfortable for you. No stairs. This is for your own good." Something inside me broke in that moment. It wasn't my heart. It was something deeper. It was my patience, my endless kindness, my habit of lowering my head and smiling even when I was being stepped on. I walked toward her slowly, very slowly, and when I was face to face looking into those green eyes that had fooled my son so badly, I said with a voice I didn't recognize as my own, "Then I'm going to make space too. In this house. Without you." Her smile froze. Then it disappeared like a candle being blown out. "What did you say so you heard me, Valerie? You are going to take your things out of my closet. You're going to pick up my clothes from the floor. And then you and I are going to have a very long conversation about who is in charge of this house." For the first time in 8 months since this woman came into my life, I saw fear in her eyes. But I still didn't know what was coming. I didn't know that this moment, this return from the supermarket with full bags and a broken heart, was just the beginning of the worst battle of my life. A battle where I would discover that my own blood, my only son, was willing to betray me in ways I never imagined. If you want to know how a mother can lose everything and get back her dignity, subscribe and stay until the end of this story, because what's coming will break your soul and then fill you with hope. But first I need to tell you how I got to that moment, how I let things get so far. And believe me when I tell you that every woman listening will recognize something of her own story in mine, because we all at some point have loved someone so much that we forgot to love ourselves. I met Valerie on a Tuesday in April 2 years ago. Samuel came home earlier than usual with that nervous smile he's had since he was a boy when he wanted to ask me for something important. He had a woman on his arm, tall, thin, with perfectly straight hair and long red nails. "Mom, this is Valerie," my son said, his eyes shining. She's very special to me." I was making chili, the good kind I make with the Texas chocolate from the farmer's market. I wiped my hands on my apron and extended my hand to greet her. Valerie just kissed both my cheeks, those fake kisses that barely touch the skin, and smiled, showing perfectly white teeth. "Mrs. Rose, so nice to finally meet you. Samuel talks about you so much. And what a cozy house." The word cozy sounded like she really meant old, but I ignored it. I wanted my son to be happy. He had been single for 3 years after breaking up with Patricia, that sweet girl who was studying nursing and who I foolishly thought would be my daughter-in-law. During that first meal, Valerie barely touched the chili. She said she was watching her diet for an event. She talked a lot about her job at a marketing agency, about the important clients she managed, her trips to Miami and Vegas. Samuel looked at her like she was an angel sent from heaven. I wanted to believe it, I really did. The months passed. Samuel started coming to Sunday dinners less often. When he did come, it was always with Valerie, and she always had an excuse not to stay long. We have a dinner with her bosses. We need to look at some apartments. We're supposed to see my parents. And then one night in December, Samuel arrived unannounced. He knelt in front of me in the living room where I was knitting a sweater while watching my show and said, "Mom, I'm getting married." I proposed to Valerie and she said yes. My heart skipped a beat. Happiness mixed with something I couldn't identify then, something that tightened in my stomach. "Son, that's wonderful," I said, and I hugged him tight. "Your father would be so proud. I want it to be a beautiful wedding, Mom, like the one you two had. Valerie deserves the best." And that's where it all began. The planning of that wedding cost me my savings. Valerie wanted the ballroom at the Grand Hotel. She wanted 300 guests. She wanted imported flowers and a dress from a boutique in Beverly Hills. Her family, as Samuel explained to me with some embarrassment, was going through a complicated time and couldn't contribute much. "How much do you need, son?" I asked one afternoon while we were having coffee in my kitchen. Samuel looked at his cup. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "About $18,000, Mom. I have $9,000 saved, but with the down payment on the apartment we're looking at, I can't cover everything." $18,000. Almost half of what my husband and I had saved over 30 years of work. Him as an accountant, me giving sewing classes at home. Money we kept for emergencies, for my old age, to leave something for Samuel when we were gone. "It's okay," I said. "It's your wedding. Your father would have wanted it to be special." I saw my son's face light up. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll pay you back. As soon as we're settled, I'll pay you back every penny." I went to the bank the next day. I took $18,000 out of my savings account. I gave the check to Samuel, and he took it with trembling hands. He kissed my forehead. He told me I was the best mother in the world. The wedding was in March on a sunny Saturday. Valerie looked beautiful in her white jeweled dress. Samuel couldn't stop smiling. I cried during the whole ceremony, sitting in the front row, holding the framed photo of my husband on my lap because he should have been there. At the reception, Valerie's mother, a thin woman with too much makeup, came up to me with a glass of champagne. "Rose, thank you for making this beautiful wedding possible. We're just going through such hard times, you know. But Valerie deserves the best. She's always been a girl with refined tastes." I smiled and nodded, though something in her words bothered me. Refined tastes. Was that code for expensive and spoiled? After their honeymoon in the Bahamas, a week that Samuel also paid for with loans, the young couple returned. And one afternoon, 2 weeks later, my son showed up at my door with a proposal. "Mom, can we talk?" I made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, that wooden table where he did his homework as a boy, where he blew out the candles on all his birthdays. "The apartment we wanted fell through," Samuel said, stirring sugar into his coffee without looking at me. "The owner sold it to someone else who offered more money. And the rents are crazy expensive, Mom. $1,200, $1,400 for a decent place." I waited. I knew what was coming. "So, what would you think if Valerie and I stayed here with you, just for a little while, 6 months, a year at most, so we can save for a down payment on something better? This house is big, 3 bedrooms. We have plenty of space." My house. The house my husband bought in 1983 when Samuel was a baby. The house where we grew up as a family. The house with the garden where we planted roses together. The house full of memories in every corner. I looked at my son, my only son, the child I nursed, who I cared for when he had chickenpox, who I hugged when he failed math in middle school, who I comforted when his first girlfriend left him. How was I going to say no? "Okay, son," I said. You can stay. It's your house, too. Samuel jumped up and hugged me. Thank you, Mom. You don't know how much this means. Valerie is going to be so happy. But when Valerie arrived that night to see her new temporary home, her expression wasn't exactly happiness. It was more like evaluation. She walked through the rooms, touching the walls, looking at the furniture, analyzing every space like a real estate inspector. It's cozy, she said again with that word I was starting to hate. Although, we'll need to modernize a few things, right, honey? And Samuel, my son, who once defended this house from his friends' jokes, saying it had history, just nodded. Yes, my love, we can make some changes. That night, after they left to sleep at a hotel before moving their things in the next day, I sat in the dark living room. The photo of my husband looked at me from the shelf. He was smiling in it with his trimmed mustache and eyes full of life. I don't know if I did the right thing, my love, I whispered to him. But he's our son. What else could I do? If my husband had been alive, if he could have answered me, I know exactly what he would have said. Rose, a mother's love doesn't mean letting them walk all over you. But I didn't understand that yet. I still believed that love and sacrifice were the same thing. The first 2 months were tolerable. That's the word, tolerable. Like when a shoe pinches, but not enough to take it off. But the shoe was about to start hurting. Very soon. And I still didn't know that the deepest wounds come from the people we love most. The first change was subtle. So subtle, I almost let it go. One morning I came down to make coffee and found my entire kitchen reorganized. The plates that were always in the top cabinet were now down below. The mugs I kept next to the coffee maker had disappeared. The pots that had hung in their place for 20 years were stuffed in a cabinet I could barely reach. Valerie appeared in designer sweatpants and a sports top, her hair in a perfect ponytail. "Oh, good morning, Rose. I reorganized a bit." It's just that the old layout wasn't functional at all. Now everything is more accessible, see? According to feng shui, the energy flows better this way. I opened my mouth to protest, to say that I had cooked in that kitchen for 40 years and knew perfectly well where everything was, that I didn't need feng shui or modernity, that it was my kitchen. But then I saw Samuel come in, kiss Valerie on the cheek and say, "It's great that you're making the house more practical, my love." And the words got stuck in my throat. It's fine," I mumbled and searched for my coffee mug in all the wrong places. A week later, I came home from church on Sunday, and the living room curtains were gone. Those burgundy curtains I had custom made with fabric I picked out at Mr. Miller's shop near the market. In their place hung gray, modern, minimalist curtains. "Do you like them?" Valerie asked, admiring her work. "I bought them at Nordstrom." "The others were so outdated, Rose. They made the living room look dark and sad." "This is so much fresher, don't you think?" No, I didn't think. My husband had chosen those burgundy curtains. He said they reminded him of the red wine we drank on our honeymoon in Napa Valley. How much did they cost? It was the only thing I could ask. Oh, not much. $350, but they were on sale. Samuel let me use the card. $350 on curtains without asking me in my house. I swallowed hard and said nothing. The changes continued like a silent avalanche. The entryway rug disappeared because it collected dust. The painting of the Virgin Mary that hung in the dining room was moved to the hallway because it clashed with the aesthetic. The family photos on the living room shelf were put in a box because there were too many, and it looked cluttered. Every time I wanted to say something, Valerie had a perfect explanation, a smile, a justification wrapped in words like practicality, modernity, better energy, and Samuel always agreed with her, always. But what really started to hurt was something else. One afternoon, Valerie invited 3 of her friends over for wine in the living room. She didn't tell me. I was in my room sewing, and suddenly I heard laughter and music. I went downstairs and found 4 women with wine glasses, snacks of cheese and ham that I had bought for the week, laughing and talking about their jobs. "Oh, Rose, come on in," Valerie said when she saw me at the door. "These are Andrea, Sophia, and Daniela." "Girls, this is Samuel's mom." Samuel's mom. Not even the owner of the house or my mother-in-law, just Samuel's mom, as if I were another piece of furniture. "Nice to meet you," I said, forcing a smile. "Oh, what a lovely house you have, Valerie," one of them said, a woman with designer glasses. "I love how you've decorated it." How she decorated it, as if it were hers, as if I hadn't lived there for 40 years. "Want some wine, Rose?" Valerie offered. It was my wine from my cellar in my living room, but I felt like a guest asking for permission. "No, thank you, I'm going upstairs." I went up the stairs, feeling the laughter resume below. I heard one of them say, "You're so lucky to live in such a big house rent-free," and Valerie's laugh crystal clear and satisfied. I couldn't sleep that night. But the worst hadn't arrived yet. The worst came on a Tuesday afternoon. I went into my bedroom looking for my pearl necklace, the one my husband gave me for our 25th anniversary. I always kept it in the blue velvet box in the top drawer of my dresser. It wasn't there. I looked in all the drawers. Nothing. My heart started to beat fast. That necklace was worth over $1,500, but its sentimental value was priceless. I ran downstairs. "Valerie, have you seen my pearl necklace?" She was painting her nails in the dining room with cotton balls and colorful bottles scattered all over the table. "Which necklace?" "The pearls, my white pearl necklace. It's always on my dresser." "Oh, yeah," she said with total casualness. "I lent it out." My blood ran cold. "You lent it out?" "Yeah, for my cousin's wedding. She needed something elegant, and I remembered you had that pretty necklace." "Don't worry, she'll give it back next week." "Valerie," my voice was shaking, "that necklace was a gift from my husband. It's not for lending." She stopped painting her nails and looked at me as if I were a dramatic child. "Oh, Rose, don't be so dramatic. It's just a necklace. My cousin will take care of it. Besides, you never wear it. It was just sitting there collecting dust." "Because it's a memory," I exploded. "You can't just take my things without permission." At that moment, Samuel walked in from the street with his briefcase and a tired face. "What's going on here?" Valerie immediately stood up, her eyes filling with tears. I didn't even know she could cry that fast. "Your mom is yelling at me, just for lending a necklace to my cousin. I just wanted to be nice and share something pretty, but she's treating me like I'm a thief." My son looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that broke my soul. Disappointment. "Mom, it's just a necklace. Valerie will get it back." "Samuel, that necklace was from your father. He gave it to me. It's not just a necklace." "I know, Mom, but Valerie didn't know. It's not a big deal. We live together, we share things, right?" Share. That word burned me. "No, son, we don't share, because this is my house, and those are my things." The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Samuel exchanged a look with Valerie, a look I couldn't decipher, but that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. "It's fine, Mom," my son finally said in a tired voice. "Valerie will tell her cousin to return the necklace. Happy. I wasn't happy, I was broken, but I nodded." Valerie stomped up the stairs, clearly offended. Samuel looked at me, one more time shook his head and followed her. I was left alone in the dining room looking at the bottles of nail polish scattered on my table. That night, lying in the dark, I heard voices through the wall. Samuel's bedroom was next to mine, and the walls in this old house are thin. "Your mom is impossible," Valerie was saying. "Everything bothers her. I can't even breathe without offending her." "I know it's hard, my love," my son replied. "But give her time. She'll get used to it." "Get used to what, Samuel?" "That this is our house, too, because it seems like to her we're still just guests." There was a silence. "Sometimes I think," Valerie continued, her voice sounding carefully fragile, "that it would be better if we had our own space, without having to ask for permission for everything, without feeling like I'm invading." "We will, my love. We just need to save a bit more. And what if," Valerie paused, "what if this house was ours? Completely, I mean. Your mom is older now, Samuel. Someday—" "Well, someday it's going to be yours anyway, and we could take better care of it. Do the remodeling it needs." My heart stopped beating. "Valerie, I can't ask my mom for that." "I'm not saying ask her. I'm just saying, think about the future. Our children, when we have them. Are they going to grow up sharing a house with their grandmother with no space of their own? I waited. I waited for my son to defend my place, to say that this was my house and that I had the right to live in it until my last day. But what he said was, "You're right. I'll think of something." I closed my eyes tightly. The tears rolled down my cheeks and wet the pillow. And there in the darkness, I understood something terrible. I had opened my house, my space, my refuge to people who didn't see a temporary home. They saw a property, a prize, something to be taken. And I had been too blind, too good, too much of a mother to see it. But the real pain, the one that was going to destroy me completely, was still on its way. The following weeks were like living in a house I no longer recognized. And the worst part is, I started to feel like I was the intruder. One Friday night, Valerie and Samuel organized a dinner party. They didn't tell me until that afternoon when I had already made chicken soup for the three of us. "Oh, Mom, don't worry about cooking," Samuel said, tying his tie in front of the hallway mirror. "Some colleagues from Valerie's work are coming over. She already ordered Japanese food." "How many people are coming?" "Like 8. 8 people, in my dining room, without anyone asking me." "Samuel, I already cooked. I made your favorite soup." My son sighed as if I were an annoying child. "Mom, just save it for tomorrow. Today is important. Valerie's boss is coming and we need to make a good impression." Make a good impression? In my house, with food they ordered. While my soup got cold on the stove. When the guests arrived, I retreated to my bedroom, but hunger forced me to go downstairs around 9 o'clock. I just needed a glass of water. The scene I found in my dining room left me breathless. 8 people were laughing and drinking wine around the table. Plates of sushi, sashimi, and rolls covered the tablecloth. Empty wine bottles were already on the kitchen counter. And at the head of the table, where my husband always sat, where I set his place for a year after his death because I couldn't accept he was gone, there sat a burly man in an expensive suit, Valerie's boss, in my husband's place. No one noticed when I entered the kitchen. I took a glass, filled it with water, with trembling hands, and as I was about to leave, I heard Valerie's voice. "Oh, that's just Rose, Samuel's mom. She lives with us." She lives with us. As if I were the one crashing here, as if this wasn't the house my husband bought with 30 years of hard work. One of the women smiled at me with pity. "That's so sweet that you take care of your mom, Samuel. Not all sons do that. Take care of me." As if I were a burden, an invalid old woman who needed charity. I climbed the stairs feeling like each step weighed 1,000 pounds. Locked in my room with the untouched glass of water on my nightstand, I cried until I fell asleep. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came on a Tuesday morning. I went down early to make coffee and found the kitchen was a disaster. Dirty plates, glasses with leftover drinks, the sink full of dishes from the previous night's dinner. Another one of their gatherings that I didn't even go down for anymore. I started washing, because it was my habit, because I couldn't see my kitchen like that, because even though it hurt to admit it, it was still my house and I needed to keep it decent. Valerie appeared at 10 in silk pajamas, yawning. "Good morning, Rose. Oh, thanks for doing the dishes. You're a sweetheart." I didn't answer. I just kept washing. "By the way," she continued, pouring herself a glass of orange juice that I had squeezed, "some people are coming today to give us an estimate for remodeling the kitchen. Samuel and I thought it would be good to modernize it. This furniture is so old." I dropped the plate I was washing. Luckily, it didn't break. "Remodel my kitchen." "Well, we live here too, right? And this kitchen is so dark, so outdated. We want to put in white cabinets, a breakfast bar, get rid of that old pantry." "My husband made that pantry with his own hands," I said, and my voice sounded dangerously low. "Yes, but its time has passed, Rose. Things aren't eternal. You have to renovate." Renovate? She wanted to renovate my husband's memories. She wanted to erase every trace of the life we built. "You are not touching this kitchen," I said. Valerie raised a perfectly drawn eyebrow. "It's not your decision. Samuel already gave the okay. It's his house, too, remember." And she walked out of the kitchen with her glass of juice, leaving me shaking with rage. When Samuel came home that night, I was waiting for him in the living room. "Son, we need to talk." He dropped his briefcase with a tired sigh. He didn't even ask how I was anymore. "What is it, Mom?" "Valerie says you're going to remodel the kitchen, without consulting me." "Mom, we just want to improve the house, make it more functional." "It's my house, Samuel. The one your father and I bought, the one we took care of for 40 years. My son rubbed his face with his hands. "Yes, it's your house, but Valerie and I live here too, and we need to feel comfortable. Can't you compromise a little? Can't you think about us too? Think about them." I had paid for their wedding. I had opened my home to them. I cooked, I cleaned, I washed while they went out and spent money at restaurants and on trips. All I do is think about you, Samuel, ever since you were born. "Well, it doesn't show," he said, and his words were like knives. "Because every time Valerie tries to do something nice, you complain. Every time we want to improve something, you object. It's like you want us to keep living in the 80s. I was speechless. My son, my baby, was talking to me as if I were an obstacle. "You know what, Mom? Sometimes Valerie is right. This house is too big for you alone, and we need our space. Maybe you should think about, I don't know, moving into something smaller. An apartment. Something easier to maintain at your age." The world stopped. "Are you asking me to leave my own home?" "No, Mom, it's not that. I'm just saying, we would all be happier with our own spaces." Valerie appeared on the stairs at that exact moment, as if she had been waiting for her cue. "Samuel is right, Rose. It's not healthy for us to live like this with so much tension. You deserve your peace, and we need to really start our married life, build our home." "Build their home? In my house. Then leave," I said. "If you need your space, go find it, but not in my house." "Mom, don't be like that." Samuel raised his voice. "We're trying to find a solution." "The only solution is one that respects that this is my house, that I decided to open my doors to help you. But you have turned my generosity into abuse." Valerie let out a sharp laugh. "Abuse. Helping to clean and modernize this house is abuse. Bringing life to a place that looked like a museum is abuse." "That's enough!" I screamed, and even I was surprised by the force in my voice. "I want you out of my house." The silence that followed was deafening. Samuel looked at me with an expression I had never seen. Coldness, contempt, as if I were a stranger. "Fine, Mom, if that's what you want. But remember this when you're all alone in this huge house, when you have no one. Remember that you're the one who kicked us out." And they went up the stairs together, leaving me trembling in the living room. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by my bedroom window looking at the empty street, wondering how it had come to this. How had my son become a stranger? How had I lost so much without even realizing it? At 2 a.m, I heard their voices again. But this time, they were speaking softly, conspiring. I pressed against the wall, my heart pounding. "Don't worry, my love," Valerie was whispering. "I already spoke to my friend Robert the lawyer. He says there are ways. We can make her sign papers where she hands over the house. Or, if she gets really difficult, there are other options." "What options?" "You know, have her declared incompetent. Say she's senile, that she can't take care of herself. With 2 medical testimonies and a certificate, we can get power of attorney. And with that, we can do whatever is necessary." My blood ran cold. "You're talking about—" "I'm talking about our future Samuel, our children, the life we deserve. Your mom has already lived her life. It's our turn." I waited. I waited for my son to say no, that it was crazy, that he would never do something like that. But what he said was, "And how much would that process cost?" Valerie smiled. I couldn't see her, but I could feel her smile through the wall. "Robert owes me a favor. He'd give us a special price, about $3,000. The deed to the house is in her name. Would it really work?" Robert says yes. Once we have power of attorney, we can say she needs special care. A nursing home, for example. And to pay for that home, we sell the house. Or we transfer it to your name to protect it. There are several ways, all legal. My son was quiet for a long moment, a moment where I prayed, begged, pleaded with heaven for him to say no. "Okay," he whispered finally. "Call Robert. Let's see what we can do." Something inside me died in that moment. It wasn't my heart because it was still beating painfully hard. It was something deeper. It was my illusion, my faith that blood was thicker than money, my belief that I had raised a good man. I moved away from the wall and sat on my bed shaking from head to toe. My own son wanted to rob me, to take my house, declare me crazy, lock me in a nursing home, and take the only thing I had left of my life with his father. And I had been so stupid, so blind, so much the good mother that I never saw the betrayal coming. But I wasn't going to be stupid anymore. I wasn't going to be blind anymore. And even if it hurt me to my very soul, I was going to fight back. Because if my husband taught me one thing before he died, it was this: Rose, never let anyone, not even with the best intentions, take away your dignity. It was time to get mine back. I woke up with swollen eyes, but with something new shining in my chest. Determination. I didn't say anything to them during breakfast. Samuel came down late, drank his coffee standing up while checking his phone. He didn't even look at me. Valerie appeared perfectly made up, smelling of expensive perfume, and announced she was going shopping. "I need a new dress for the dinner on Saturday," she said, grabbing the car keys. My car. The one my husband left me, which she now used as if it were hers. I watched them leave one after the other. The house fell silent. And then I let myself cry. Really cry. Not those silent sobs in the night, but deep, racking sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for my husband who wasn't there to protect me. I cried for the son I had lost without even realizing it. I cried for the fool I was believing that love was enough. But I didn't cry for long, because I had to be strong. I had to think. I dried my tears and went to the study, the small room where my husband kept his important documents. The deed to the house should be in the safe. I opened it with trembling hands. The combination was our anniversary date, and I took out all the papers, deed to the house, in my name. Rose M. Salazar, my husband's will, everything to me, and after my death to Samuel, investment certificates, the savings that were left, $89,000. And then I found something that froze my blood, a document I didn't remember signing, a loan application from the National Bank for $45,000, with my house as collateral. My signature was there, but I had never signed that. My knees buckled. I had to sit down in my husband's desk chair, the chair where he spent hours checking accounts, planning our future. Samuel had forged my signature. My son. The person I carried in my womb for 9 months, who I nursed, who I cared for when he had pneumonia at age 7, and the doctor said we might lose him. That child had forged my signature to get a loan using my house. And suddenly, it all made sense. The new furniture they bought, the trip to Miami last month, Valerie's designer clothes, the expensive restaurants, all paid for with money they borrowed, using my property as collateral. If they didn't pay, the bank would take my house. The phone rang, startling me. It was my cousin Eleanor, the only family I had left on my husband's side. "Rose, how are you? I haven't seen you in weeks. Are you still alive, or did you fall off the earth?" Eleanor was a retired lawyer, Blunt a straight shooter. 10 years older than me, also a widow, she lived alone in a trendy downtown loft. "Eleanor," my voice broke. "I need you to come over, please." She heard the cry in my voice. "I'm on my way." She arrived in 40 minutes. When I opened the door, she saw my face and walked right in. She hugged me tight like my mom used to when I was little. "Tell me everything," she said. And I told her. I told her about Valerie, the changes in the house, the humiliations, the conversation I heard in the middle of the night. I showed her the loan document. Eleanor looked at the paper with eagle eyes. She took out her reading glasses, the ones she always carried, even though she said she didn't need them, and studied every line. "This signature is fake," she said finally. "I know your signature, Rose. This was done by someone who copied it, but it's not you. Look here, the R is different, and the last name has a slant you never do. What can I do?" Eleanor took off her glasses and looked at me with that seriousness I'd known since we were kids. "First, we're going to nullify this loan for fraud. Second, we're going to protect your assets before it's too late. And third, she paused. Third, you're going to have to decide how far you're willing to go, because if you report this, Samuel could go to jail. He's your son, Rose. Could you do that? The question hung in the air. Could I send the boy who once gave me flowers from the garden on Mother's Day to jail, the young man who cried in my arms when he failed his final exams, the son who kissed my forehead and said, "Thank you for everything, Mom," on his wedding day? I don't know, I whispered. Well, you need to know soon, because from what you're telling me, they already have a plan, and you need a better one. Eleanor took out her phone and called someone. Robert, it's Eleanor Salazar. I need your help with an urgent case. Yes, family fraud. No, I'd rather not talk about it on the phone. Tomorrow at 10. Perfect. She hung up and took my hands. Robert Miller is the best lawyer I know. We're seeing him tomorrow. But tonight, you and I are going to do something. What? We're going to look for proof, everything you can find, receipts, bank statements, messages, everything. Because if we're going to fight with ammunition. We spent the afternoon searching. We found things that turned my stomach. Samuel's credit card statements, $23,000 in debt, expensive restaurants, luxury stores, spas, hotels, invoices for furniture they bought for the house, $8,500, a contract for a new car in Valerie's name, down payment, $12,000. Where did that money come from? And the worst part, WhatsApp messages we found on an old tablet of Samuel's that was stored in a drawer. Messages with Valerie. Valerie. I already spoke to Robert. He says the process takes about 3 months. Samuel. What if my mom resists, Valerie? That's why we need her to sign papers beforehand. We have to make her feel guilty, make her think she's doing us a favor. Samuel. I don't know if I can. She's my mom. Valerie. And I'm your wife. Who do you owe your loyalty to? Besides, we're not taking anything from her. It was all going to be yours someday. We're just speeding up the process. Samuel. You're right. For our future. Valerie. For our future. Eleanor photographed every message with her phone. This is Gold Rose, proof of conspiracy to commit fraud and strip you of your property. But I could only see one thing. My son choosing that woman over me. My son calling me the obstacle. My son planning to rob me. That night, when Samuel and Valerie returned loaded with bags from Nordstrom, I was sitting in the living room. Calm. Serene. Hi, Mom, Samuel said, almost surprised to see me there. Are you okay? Yes, son. Very good. Valerie looked at me with suspicion. She sensed something was different. Well, we're going upstairs. I'm tired, she said, pulling Samuel by the arm. I watched them go up, and when they were gone, I took out my phone and sent a message to Eleanor. I'm ready. We're going to fight. The reply came immediately. That's my girl. Tomorrow your comeback begins. I went to sleep that night with a strange sense of peace. I was no longer the victim. I was no longer the naive mother who let herself be trampled. I was a woman who was going to defend what was hers. And Valerie and Samuel had no idea what kind of storm was coming for them. Because if I've learned anything in 68 years of life, it's this: still waters are the most dangerous. And I had been still quiet and patient for far too long. But when still waters get stirred up, they become a tsunami. And the tsunami was about to hit. At 9 the next morning, Eleanor arrived in her car. An old Nissan, but immaculate, just like her. She carried a leather briefcase and that serious expression she used when she was going to court. Ready, she asked. Ready. I left a note for Samuel in the kitchen. Went out with Eleanor, back this afternoon. Short. No explanations. Let them wonder. Robert Miller's office was in a downtown high-rise, an old building with a grilled elevator. His office was small but full of books. A man in his 60s with a gray mustache and intelligent eyes received us with coffee. Eleanor gave me the overview, he said, sitting across from us. But I need you to tell me everything, Mrs. Rose, with details. And I told him, again. But this time I didn't cry. This time I spoke with clarity, with data, with dates. Mr. Miller took notes in a yellow legal pad. Occasionally, he would nod. When I finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me with something resembling admiration. Mrs. Rose, what they are doing to you has several legal names: fraud, forgery, dispossession, conspiracy. Your son could face up to 12 years in prison. I felt the floor move beneath me. 12 years for forging the signature and using your property as collateral without your consent. Yes, it's a serious crime. But there's more. He opened his briefcase and took out a laptop. With your permission, I'm going to do a little research. Can you give me your daughter-in-law's full name? Valerie Rivers. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Eleanor and I waited in silence. The wall clock ticked off the seconds like heartbeats. Here we are, he said finally. Valerie Rivers, age 29. And she has... interesting. What? She has a very problematic credit history. 3 credit cards canceled for non-payment. A consolidated debt of $32,000 with one bank, and a pending civil lawsuit from a former landlord for damages to a rental property, $4,000. I was breathless. And her family. The lawyer kept digging. Her father, Gerald Rivers, owned a wine distribution company. It went bankrupt 2 years ago. He currently faces 3 lawsuits from suppliers for unpaid bills. The mother, Sandra Rivers, has no registered employment. They live in a rented house in a suburb. It all fit together like a sick puzzle. Valerie wasn't the successful woman she claimed to be. She was a woman in debt from a broken family who saw my son and my house as a way out. There's more, the lawyer continued. I found something curious. Valerie was engaged 3 years ago to a businessman from Dallas, Richard Blackstone. The engagement was broken off abruptly. According to a note in a society column, he accused her of stealing money from his account. Eleanor let out a low whistle. She's a professional gold digger. It seems so, Mr. Miller confirmed, and your son, forgive my frankness, fell right into the trap. My poor Samuel, my naive son who always believed the best in people, who fell in love with his eyes closed, who had been manipulated by a woman who only saw dollar signs where there should have been love. What can I do? I asked, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. The lawyer leaned back in his chair. You have several options. Option 1, file a criminal complaint for fraud. The process would be long, painful, and your son would go to trial. If found guilty, jail time. Option 2, confront them with the evidence and negotiate. Force them to return the money, nullify the loan, and get them out of your house with a notarized agreement. No jail, but with consequences. And the house, is it safe? Right now, no. That loan is a ticking time bomb. If it's not paid, the bank can start foreclosure proceedings. But we can nullify it by proving the signature is fake. We'd need a handwriting expert, but I have one I trust. $500, 2 weeks max. Do it, I said without thinking. Perfect. I also recommend you transfer your savings to a new account, one they don't know about, and change your will immediately. If something happened to you right now, everything would go to your son automatically and consequently to her. Panic gripped my chest. Change my will. It's a protective measure, Mrs. Rose. I'm not saying your son would harm you, but Valerie, she worries me. I've seen cases where things get ugly when there's money involved. Eleanor took my hand. Listen to him, Rose. This isn't a game. That same afternoon, Mr. Miller took us to a notary he trusted. There, in an office that smelled of old paper and coffee, I changed my will. Now everything would go into a trust. Samuel would receive the inheritance, but only after meeting certain conditions, proving financial stability, being divorced from Valerie, or presenting proof that he had paid all his debts. If I died before he met those conditions, everything would go to charity. I signed with a trembling hand. Each signature felt like a betrayal, but also like an act of survival. Afterward, we went to the bank. With Eleanor by my side and Mr. Miller explaining everything to the bank manager, I opened a new account. I transferred the $89,000 I had left. The new card would arrive in 5 days at Eleanor's address. And the loan, I asked the bank manager. We have to investigate, ma'am. If the signature is fake, the loan is nullified and your son would automatically face criminal charges. We need you to file the report." "Not yet," I said. "I need to talk to him first." The manager looked at me with pity. He had probably seen 1,000 cases like mine. Mothers robbed by their sons, elderly people dispossessed by their relatives. The oldest story in the world. When we got back to my house, it was almost 6 in the evening. Samuel's car was in the driveway. The living room lights were on. "Want me to go in with you?" Eleanor asked. "No, I need to do this alone." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She hugged me tight. "Call me if you need me, anytime." I watched her drive away in her old car, and then I took a deep breath and entered my house. Samuel was in the living room watching TV. Valerie wasn't there. "Hey, Mom, where were you?" His tone was casual, unconcerned, as if he wasn't planning to rob me. "With Eleanor, catching up." "Oh, did you eat?" "Valerie went out with her friends. I was going to order a pizza." I sat down across from him. I really looked at him, my 34-year-old son with some gray already at his temples with tired lines around his eyes, with that 3-day beard he wore now because Valerie said it looked more masculine. When did I lose my little boy? At what point did he become this stranger? "Samuel, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest." He turned off the TV. Something in my tone alerted him. "What's wrong?" "Did you take out a loan using my house as collateral?" The color drained from his face. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. And in that silence, I had my answer. "Mom, I can explain." "Did you forge my signature, Samuel, yes or no?" Tears started to roll down his cheeks. My son crying like he was 5 years old and broke my mother's crystal vase. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We needed the money. Valerie had debts. Her family is in a bad way, and I thought I could pay it back before you found out. You thought you could steal from me without me noticing." "It's not stealing. It's my inheritance, Mom. It's going to be mine someday anyway." I just took it early." I stood up. I needed distance. I needed air. "It's not your inheritance while I'm alive, Samuel, and forging my signature is stealing. It's a crime. You could go to jail." "Jail, Mom, no. Please, it was a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll pay back every penny, I swear." "With what money? You have $23,000 in credit card debt. You bought a new car, clothes, trips. Where are you going to get the money?" He was silent because he had no answer. "And there's something else." I continued, my voice like ice. "I know you and Valerie were planning to declare me incompetent. I know you wanted to put me in a nursing home to get the house. I heard your conversation. I have the proof." My son collapsed onto the sofa. He covered his face with his hands. "Mom, I never would have done that. It was just an idea. Something Valerie mentioned. I swear I never what? Never would have betrayed me because you already did, Samuel. When you signed those papers with my name, when you let that woman disrespect me in my own house, when you chose her whims over my dignity." My son's crying was heartbreaking, but something in me had hardened. Something had broken, and I didn't know if it could be fixed. "Mom, please, I love you. You're my mom. I made mistakes, huge mistakes. But give me a chance. I'll fix it. The door opened. Valerie walked in laughing on the phone, carrying bags from Zara and Forever 21. "Yeah, girl, it was amazing. I'll send you pics later. Bye." She hung up and saw us. Samuel crying. Me standing with my arms crossed. "What happened here?" she asked, but her tone was cautious. "What happened?" I said, and my voice cut the air like a knife. "Is that the show is over. I know everything. The loan, the debts, the plans. Everything." The smile froze on her perfectly made-up face. And then that sweet girl mask fell. Her eyes turned hard cold, calculating. "Well," she said, dropping the bags on the floor, "it's about time." And what came next chilled me to the bone. Valerie looked at me with a smile that had nothing sweet about it. It was the smile of someone who could finally take off the mask. "You know what, Rose, I'm tired of pretending. Yes, we took out the loan. Yes, we did it without your permission. And you know why? Because this house is ridiculously large for one person. Because you have money saved up that you don't even use. Because your son is 34 years old and deserves to have his own life without begging you for every dollar." "Valerie, shut up," Samuel whispered. "No, honey. Why? She already knows everything. Let's stop playing games." She took off her heels, poured herself a glass of wine from my bottle, and sat on my sofa as if she owned the place. "The truth is simple. You're old, Rose. You're alone. You have no one but Samuel. And we need this house. So yes, we did what we had to do. If you had been more understanding from the beginning, none of this would have been necessary." Every word was a slap in the face, but I wasn't going to cry. Not in front of her. "You're right about one thing," I said calmly. "I'm old. I'm 68. But I am not alone, and I am definitely not stupid." "Oh, really? Because you let us live here. You let us change your house. You let us use your things." "Sounds pretty stupid to me." Samuel shot up from the sofa. "Valerie, that's enough, Mom. She doesn't mean it. She's just angry." "Yes, I do mean it," Valerie interrupted him. "I'm sick of living in her shadow, of asking for permission for everything. Of listening to her talk about your dad and the good old days as if the present doesn't matter. This house needs new life, and we're going to bring it, with or without her." Something changed inside me in that moment. It wasn't anger, it wasn't pain, it was something colder, more calculating. It was clarity. "You have 1 week," I said. "What?" "1 week to pack your things and get out of my house." Valerie burst out laughing. "Or what? You'll kick us out. Samuel is your son. He has rights. This house will be his someday." "Not if I don't want it to be," I answered. "I changed my will this afternoon. Everything is in a trust now. Samuel will only receive his inheritance if he meets certain conditions. And as long as I am alive, this house is mine, and you are just guests. Guests who have overstayed their welcome." Valerie's face turned red. "You did what? You can't do that." "I already did, and I also moved my savings to a new account, so don't bother looking." As Samuel looked at me, his eyes wide. "Mom, why would you do that?" "Because I heard your plan, son. The plan to declare me incompetent, to put me in a nursing home. To take my house while I die alone in some room smelling of disinfectant and stale food. Mom, I never... But you thought about it. You considered it, and that's enough." Valerie stood up abruptly. "This is war, then. You know what Robert can get medical witnesses to say you're senile, that you're not in your right mind. We can invalidate everything you signed today. Try it," I said, and my voice was steel. "But while you're doing that, I'll be reporting the loan fraud, with handwriting experts, with the bank, with the police. And Samuel will go to jail. Is that what you want for your husband?" The silence fell like a tombstone. Valerie stared at me with pure hatred. Samuel was pale, shaking. 7 days, I repeated. "If you're not gone, I call the police and file the charges. You decide." I went up the stairs without looking back. My legs were shaking, but I didn't stop until I reached my bedroom. I locked the door, and then only then I let myself tremble. I sat on the bed and the tears came. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of liberation, of a strength I never knew I had. The next few days were strange. Valerie and Samuel barely spoke to me. They ate out. They came home late. I didn't speak to them either, but I wasn't idle. Every morning after they left, I acted, with precision, with intelligence. I called Mr. Miller. The handwriting expert had already analyzed the signature. Confirmed. It was a forgery. The official report would be ready in 3 days. I contacted the bank. We scheduled a meeting to present the evidence. If all went well, the loan would be nullified and the bank would press charges automatically unless I objected. That was my ace in the hole. I could save Samuel from jail. But he didn't know that. Eleanor came over every day. We'd have coffee in the kitchen and review the plan. "Are you sure you want to see this through to the end?" she asked me one Wednesday. "I'm not sure of anything, Eleanor, but I know I can't keep being the victim." "Good, Because victims don't win, warriors do. On Thursday, while I was reviewing papers in the study, I found something that chilled my blood. A real estate brochure with handwritten notes, Valerie's handwriting. House in Beverly Hills, 4 bedrooms, $580,000. With sale of Rose's house, $420,000 approx. Need loan for $160,000. Doable. Talk to Robert about how to force the sale. I photographed the paper with my phone. More proof. They didn't just want my house. They already had plans to sell it, to force me to sell it so they could buy something better. On Friday, a package arrived for me. It was my new bank card. At Eleanor's address, as we had agreed. I went to her place to pick it up. "Everything is protected now," she said. "Your savings, your will, the evidence. Now all that's left is the final blow, which is confronting them with everything in front of witnesses. Make them sign an agreement or face jail. Whenever you say." That night in my bedroom, I took out the rosary my mother gave me for my first communion. I hadn't prayed with it in years. The beads were cold in my fingers. I prayed, not for revenge, not for justice. I prayed for strength, for clarity, for wisdom to know what to do about my own son, because a part of me still loved him, the part that remembered the 5-year-old boy who brought me flowers, the teenager who hugged me after nightmares, the young man who cried on my shoulder when his father died. But another part, the new part that was being born, knew that love didn't mean letting yourself be destroyed. On Saturday morning, I made a decision. I went down to the kitchen where Samuel was drinking coffee. Alone. Valerie was still asleep. "Son, I need you to listen." He looked up at me with swollen eyes. He hadn't been sleeping well either. "Mom, listen to me first. Next Wednesday, I'm organizing a meeting. You, Valerie, my lawyer, and a notary. We are going to sign an agreement." "What kind of agreement?" "One where you both renounce any claim on this house. Where you commit to paying me back in installments, we can agree on what you spent from the fraudulent loan. And where you leave this house. If you sign, I don't press charges. If you don't sign the following Monday, I go to the bank and the police. And you will go to jail, Samuel." My son dropped his mug. The coffee spilled all over the table. "Mom, you can't." "Yes, I can. And I will. But I'm giving you a way out, a chance to fix this without completely destroying your life. What if Valerie doesn't agree? Then you'll have to choose, son, between your wife and your freedom." I left him there cleaning up the spilled coffee with shaking hands. I went up to my room and called Mr. Miller. "Robert, it's time. Prepare everything for Wednesday." "Are you sure, Mrs. Rose?" "Completely." I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one from a month ago. She had dark circles. She had lost weight. But her eyes were shining with something I hadn't seen in years. Determination, strength, dignity. My husband had taught me to be strong, but I had forgotten that lesson somewhere along the way. At some point I confused love with submission, generosity with weakness, but not anymore. On Sunday, Valerie sought me out. She knocked softly on my door. "Rose, can we talk?" I opened it. She came in with a look of regret. Very well acted. "I know things got out of control," she said softly. "And I'm sorry. I really am. Samuel and I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We're family." "Family," I repeated. "Is this how you treat family, by stealing, by planning to put me in a home? I never wanted that. It was just stupid ideas, stress, the debts. I wasn't thinking clearly." "We'll resolve it all on Wednesday, with lawyers, with papers, with signatures that will actually be real." Her mask of regret fell for a second. I saw the flash of hatred in her eyes. "You're tougher than I thought," she said. "I'm not tough. I'm a survivor, and you two forced me to remember that." She left my room without another word. Monday and Tuesday passed in silent tension. Valerie and Samuel whispered in their room. I heard them arguing. She would yell, he would cry. But I didn't give in. I didn't go to comfort my son. I didn't soften my stance. because I knew if I did, I would lose, and I had already lost too much. Tuesday night, while I was eating a simple sandwich alone in the kitchen, I didn't cook for them anymore. My phone rang. It was Eleanor. "Rose, everything is set. Tomorrow at 10 at Robert Miller's office. The notary is confirmed. Are you ready?" I looked around my kitchen. The pantry my husband built. The table where we ate thousands of breakfasts. The walls that held 40 years of memories. "I'm ready," I said. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. Wednesday dawned gray. Heavy clouds covered the city like an omen. I got up at 6. I took a hot shower, letting the steam relax me. I put on my best dress, the navy blue one I wore to Samuel's wedding, and the silver necklace my husband gave me on our last anniversary. Not the pearls. Those had never reappeared. Valerie never returned them. I went down to the kitchen. Samuel was already there, sitting at the table, his head in his hands. "Good morning," I said, pouring myself coffee. "Mom, please, don't do this." "It's already done, son. All that's left is for you to decide which path to take. Valerie says she won't sign anything. She says it's a trap." And I took a sip of coffee. It was bitter, but I liked it. It's not a trap, it's justice. But if she prefers a judge to handle this, fine. Except then the judge will also be deciding on your prison sentence. She's my wife, Mom. How can you ask me to choose? I'm not asking you to choose Samuel. You already chose. Months ago, when you signed my name on those papers, when you let her disrespect me, when you planned to take the only thing I have left of your father. He broke. He cried like a little boy. "Forgive me. Please forgive me." A part of me wanted to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay, that Mom always forgives. But that part was tired, hurt, broken. "I do forgive you, son, but consequences aren't erased by forgiveness. They're erased by actions." At 9:30, Eleanor came to get me. She was wearing a gray pantsuit and that intimidating lawyer look. "How are you?" she asked. Scared, but firm. "That's all you need." Samuel followed us in his car. Valerie was in the passenger seat wearing dark sunglasses, her face a mask of contained fury. Robert Miller's office was set up like a hearing room. A long table, chairs on each side, Mr. Miller at the head. Next to him a notary, an older gentleman with glasses and a briefcase, and another man I didn't know. "Mrs. Rose, this is Mr. Ramos from the bank," Mr. Miller introduced. "He's here as a witness for the institution." I nodded. My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Samuel and Valerie entered. She was wearing high heels and a black dress that made her look like she was going to a funeral. Maybe it was appropriate. Something was going to die today. "Please sit," Mr. Miller instructed. We sat, me on one side with Eleanor, them on the other. The table between us felt like a chasm. "All right," Mr. Miller began, opening his briefcase. "We are here to resolve a very delicate situation. Mrs. Rose Salazar, do you confirm that your son Samuel Salazar forged your signature to obtain a $45,000 loan using your property as collateral?" "I confirm it." Mr. Miller took out documents and placed them on the table. The loan, the handwriting analysis, photographic comparisons of the signatures. The certified expert confirms the signature is a forgery. The bank is prepared to nullify the loan and press criminal charges for fraud. This would mean 6 to 12 years in prison for Mr. Salazar. Valerie clenched her fists. Samuel closed his eyes. "However," Mr. Miller continued, "Mrs. Rose is willing to not press charges if an agreement is reached. This agreement includes 3 points. 1, a total renunciation of any claims on Mrs. Rose's property. 2, a commitment to repay the debt in monthly payments of $500 for 5 years. 3, immediate vacating of the property with a maximum deadline of 7 days. "This is ridiculous," Valerie exploded. "We're not signing that." "It's extortion." "It's not extortion, ma'am," the notary chimed in, his voice tired. "It's a legal option. The alternative is the criminal process. And believe me, judges are not kind when it comes to fraud against the elderly. She's not some helpless old person. Look at her. She's trapping us. This is revenge. Revenge." My voice was stronger than I expected. Revenge for protecting what's mine, for not letting myself be robbed. Call it whatever you want, Valerie, but I'm within my rights. Samuel, say something, she pleaded with my son. He was staring at the documents, at the proof of his betrayal. How long do we have to decide? He asked in a broken voice. Today, Mr. Miller answered. If you don't sign Mrs. Rowe files the criminal complaint tomorrow. And once that process begins, there's no turning back. Valerie shot up. I need to talk to my husband, alone. The lawyer pointed to a small office next door. They went in and closed the door. Eleanor took my hand under the table. You're doing great, she whispered, but I didn't feel great. I felt like I was killing something. I didn't know if it was the past, or my illusions, or my relationship with my son. But something was dying, and I was the one holding the blade. 10 minutes later, they came out. Valerie's eyes were red. Samuel was ghost white. They sat down. I have a counteroffer, Valerie said, her voice like ice. We sign the agreement, we leave. But we also want you to give us $20,000 for a down payment on an apartment. Consider it compensation. The room was completely silent. Compensation? I repeated, incredulous. For what? For everything. For the time we've been here. For the stress. No, I said simply. Then we don't sign, Valerie shot back. And we'll let the judge decide. Samuel will go to jail, yes, but you'll be left without a son. Forever. Is that what you want, to be alone in that huge house knowing you sent your only child to rot in prison? Her words were poison, and they hurt. They hurt so much that for a second I wavered. But then I remembered. I remembered my clothes on the floor. I remembered her friends laughing in my living room. I remembered the words, "She lives with us," as if I were the guest. I remembered the plan to declare me incompetent. I remembered 40 years of effort, of love, of building something they wanted to destroy. No, I repeated firmer, not one more dollar. You either sign the agreement or we'll see each other in court. Valerie looked at Samuel, looking for support, looking for him to beg me. My son looked me in the eyes, and in his, I saw everything. The child he was, the man he is, and the stranger he had become. Mom, he whispered, would you really do this to me? Would you really send me to jail? You sent yourself when you forged my signature. I am just defending myself. Answer the question, would you? The moment stretched. Everyone waited for my answer, and I knew this was the real question, the only one that mattered. Did I love my son enough to save him from the consequences of his actions? Or did I love myself enough to not let myself be destroyed? Yes, I said finally, I would. Because I am no longer the mother who forgives everything. I am now a woman who defends herself. And if that means losing you, son, then so be it. Samuel crumbled. He literally folded over the table and sobbed. Sobbed like I hadn't seen him sob since his father died. Valerie looked at him with contempt. And right there, I saw it. I saw her calculating, measuring, deciding that a crying homeless man was of no use to her. Give me the pen, she said, full of rage. Let's sign this and get it over with. The notary prepared the documents, 3 copies. Mr. Miller reviewed them line by line before handing them over. Read carefully before you sign, he warned. Once signed, this is legal and binding. Samuel read through his tears. Valerie barely glanced at the pages. And then they signed, one after the other, their names in blue ink renouncing everything. The house, the immediate inheritance, committing to pay $500 a month for 5 years. The notary certified it. The bank lawyer took his copy. Eleanor took another. You have 7 days to vacate, Mr. Miller said. If you don't, Mrs. Rose can request a forced eviction. Valerie stood up, grabbed her purse, and looked at Mr. Miller. Can I ask a question? Go ahead. How much are you charging her for this? Because I would love to sue her for extortion. Mr. Miller smiled without humor. My services are pro bono in this case, and it's not extortion to defend a 68-year-old woman from her own son's fraud. But go ahead and try. I have 30 years of experience fighting losing cases." Valerie stormed out, slamming the door. Samuel stayed for a moment longer, looking at me. "I lost my mom today," he said. "No son. I lost my son months ago. I just hadn't accepted it until now." He walked out, without looking back. When the door closed, I sat there shaking. Eleanor hugged me. Mr. Miller poured me a glass of water. "You did well," he said. "Very well." But I didn't feel well. I felt empty. Victorious, but destroyed. Free, but alone. "Now what?" I asked. "Now you go home," Eleanor answered, "and you start to get your life back, your space, your peace." We left the office at noon. The sun had broken through the clouds. The city kept spinning, oblivious to my personal drama. In the car, Eleanor drove in silence, until she said, "You know what the bravest thing you did today was? What? You loved yourself more than you loved your guilt." Those words broke me. I cried the whole way home. I cried for my lost son, for the relationship we would never have again, for the innocence that had died. But I also cried with relief. Because finally, after so long, I had chosen not to be a victim. I had chosen to survive. The next 7 days were the strangest of my life. Samuel and Valerie practically became invisible. They left early, came back late. I heard them packing at night, boxes dragging, drawers opening and closing, the sound of a life being unnested. I didn't speak to them either. What was there to say? Everything had been said, signed, and sealed. On Thursday, 3 days after the meeting, I came home from shopping and found the house empty. I thought they had just stepped out, but when I went upstairs, I noticed their bedroom door was open. I went in. The room was half-packed, clothes everywhere, open suitcases, and on the bed, tossed like trash, was a photograph. I got closer. It was a photo of Samuel as a boy. He must have been about 6. He was riding on his dad's shoulders, smiling with that gap-toothed grin. I was next to them, pregnant, though you could barely tell, with my second baby. The one I lost at 4 months. That photo had been on his dresser forever. It was his favorite. He had told me 1,000 times, "Mom, this is my best memory. Dad, you me, complete." And now, here it was, discarded among dirty clothes and boxes. I picked it up with trembling hands. The frame was broken. The glass was cracked as if it had been thrown in anger. I sat on that bed that had been theirs for months, holding the photo, and something inside me shifted again. It wasn't pain anymore. It was understanding. My son had chosen, and he had chosen wrong. But that choice was his, not mine. I couldn't save him anymore. I could only save myself. On Saturday morning, the 6th day, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a moving truck outside. 2 burly men were waiting. Samuel came out of the house with a box. "They're here to take our things," he said, not looking me in the eye. "Okay." For 3 hours, I watched them take everything out. The furniture they had bought, the new TV, the boxes of their clothes. Valerie's car pulled out of the garage where my husband kept his car for 30 years. Valerie supervised everything, wearing sunglasses, her face bitter. She didn't greet me. She didn't even look at me. But when the truck was full and the men were waiting to leave, Samuel approached me. We were on the front porch, the same porch where I photographed him on his first day of school, where I waited for him 1,000 nights when he was out with friends, where I held him when his father died. "Mom," he said, and his voice was pure pain. "Is this really how it's going to end?" "This is how you decided it would, son. I made mistakes, horrible mistakes, but I'm still your son. Doesn't that count for anything?" I looked at this man in front of me, tall with his father's features, but with something broken in his eyes. "You will always be my son, Samuel, but you can no longer be my responsibility, or my vulnerability. You betrayed my trust. You forged my signature. You planned to take my home. How can you expect us to go back to what we were? By giving me a chance, time, forgiveness. I forgave you when I signed that agreement and didn't press charges. You could be in jail right now. That was my forgiveness. But trust, that is earned, And it's going to take a lot more than words. How long? How many years until I can call you again, visit, be your son again? I don't know, Samuel. I really don't know. Valerie honked the horn from the car. Your wife is waiting, I said. He looked back, at that woman who had led him down the wrong path, and then he looked at me. I chose wrong, didn't I? Yes. Is there any way to fix it? There's always a way to fix things, but not today, not tomorrow. Maybe in a long time, when you prove that you've really changed, that you're not the man who signed my name on those papers. Valerie honked again, more insistent. Samuel took a step toward me. For a moment I thought he would hug me, but he just stopped his arms halfway, not daring. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. That's why I had to do this. He got in the car. Valerie sped off before he even closed the door properly. The moving truck followed. I stood on the porch watching them go, watching them disappear around the corner, watching my son leave my life, maybe forever. And then for the first time in months, I felt something strange. Peace. I went inside the house, our home, my husband's and mine, and I walked through every room. The kitchen no longer had those modern dishes or the expensive pots or the smell of Valerie's perfume. The living room no longer had her clothes thrown around or her fashion magazines or her friends laughing at my life. My bedroom was still mine with no threat of being taken. It was as if the house could breathe again, as if the walls sighed in relief. That afternoon, Eleanor called. How are you? I don't know, good, bad, empty, free, all at once. That's normal. You just fought the hardest battle of your life, and you won. It doesn't feel like a victory, because it's not victory. It's survival, and that's more important. What do I do now, Eleanor? Now you live. You take back your house. You take back yourself, and you let time heal what it's supposed to heal. 3 weeks passed. Total silence from Samuel. Not a call, not a message, nothing. I rediscovered my house. I put my burgundy curtains back up. I took all the family photos out of the boxes and put them back on the shelf. I rehung the wedding portrait with my husband in the living room. Eleanor came for dinner on Sundays. She brought me donuts from Joe's bakery near her loft. We'd drink coffee and talk about everything and nothing. Have you heard from him? She asked one Sunday. Nothing. Do you know anything? I asked, trying to be casual. They're renting a small apartment, 1 bedroom, across town. Samuel is working at a mechanic's shop. He lost his old job because of, well, the loan scandal. It hurt to hear that. To think of my son doing hard labor in a tiny apartment paying for his mistakes. And Valerie, Eleanor took a sip of coffee before answering. That's the interesting part. It seems they're not together anymore. My heart skipped a beat. What? Valerie left him. 2 weeks ago. A neighbor told me you know how gossip travels. Apparently when she saw Samuel had no money, no house, no future, she was gone. Met some other guy, someone with money. I didn't feel joy, just a deep sadness for my son. And Samuel, he's alone, working, living, surviving. I couldn't sleep that night, thinking of my son in that small apartment, alone, abandoned by the woman he risked everything for. Was it enough punishment? Was it too much? When does the pain end and the forgiveness begin? The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Mom. Samuel's voice, broken. Mom, it's me. A lump formed in my throat. Samuel, I know I have no right to call you. I know I signed that I wouldn't bother you. But I needed to hear your voice. I needed to tell you something. I'm listening. You were right about everything. Valerie. She left me. And I realized she never loved me. She only loved what I could give her. And when I had nothing left, she was gone. Like I never meant anything. He was crying over the phone, my grown son, crying like a child. I lost everything, Mom, my job, my marriage, my dignity, my family. And the worst part is, I deserved it. I deserved every bit of it. Samuel, no. Let me finish. I want you to know I'm not calling to ask for money or for you to forgive me. I want you to know that I get it. I understand what I did. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man Dad would have wanted me to be, the man you raised. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, but I needed you to know. Tears were rolling down my cheeks. Where are you, son? In a small apartment. I'm working at a garage. It's hard work, but it's honest. And every month I'm going to deposit the $500 from the agreement. I already made the first deposit. Check your account. I don't need that money, Samuel, but I need to pay it. I need to keep my word, even if it's the only thing I can do to start making things right. We were silent for a moment, a silence filled with everything we couldn't say. Can I see you someday? He asked in a small voice. Not to ask for anything, just to have a coffee, so you can see I'm trying to change. I closed my eyes. In my mind, I saw two images, my son forging my signature, planning to rob me, and my 6-year-old son on his dad's shoulders, smiling his gap-toothed grin. Call me in 3 months, I said finally. If by then you're still working, still paying, still being the man you say you want to be, then we'll have that coffee. Really. Really. But it has to be on your terms, Samuel, not mine. You have to prove it to me, and to yourself. That you changed because you wanted to, not because I forced you. I will, Mom. I swear, I will. Take care, son. You too, Mom, and thank you for not giving up on me, even when you had to be tough. We hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, crying and smiling at the same time. Eleanor was right. It wasn't victory. It was survival. But it was also something more. It was the possibility that something new could grow from the ashes. I didn't know if Samuel would keep his word. I didn't know if our relationship would ever be repaired. But for the first time in a long time, I had hope. Hope that my son would find his way, and hope that I finally had found mine. 3 months passed, 90 days exactly since that call. And on the first of every month without fail, a deposit appeared in my account, $500, I said, with a reference that always said the same thing, from Samuel, keeping my word. I didn't use the money. I left it there accumulating. $500 that was more than money. It was proof. It was effort. It was perhaps the beginning of redemption. In those 3 months, my life changed in ways I didn't expect. I started my sewing classes again. I had stopped them when Samuel and Valerie arrived because I just didn't have the energy or emotional space. But now, 3 times a week, my living room was filled with women young and old, learning to hem, to sew buttons, to create something with their own hands. One of them, Lucy, a 25-year-old with a baby, told me one day, "Mrs. Rose, you have a special light. You can tell you've suffered, but you didn't let the suffering put you out." Her words touched me deeply, because she was right. I had suffered, but I wasn't put out. I was lit differently. Eleanor and I started traveling, little trips, to Santa Barbara for a weekend, to Napa Valley, to San Diego, to eat tacos and visit the missions. Nothing fancy, just 2 older women making up for lost time. You know the best part about getting old, Eleanor told me in Santa Barbara as we were eating. You don't have to ask anyone for permission to be happy. And she was right. I also started therapy. Yes, at 68 years old, I sat in a psychologist's office Dr. Martin recommended by Eleanor, and I talked. I talked about my husband, my son, the guilt, the misunderstood love, all the years I confused sacrifice with love. Love isn't disappearing so others can shine, Dr. Martin told me in one session. Love is shining together, and when someone asks you to dim your light so they can shine, that's not love. That's abuse. I wrote those words in a notebook. I read them every morning. And in the midst of all this, my house became my home again. I redecorated, calmly. I painted the guest room a light yellow. I bought new plants for the garden. I put photos of my husband everywhere. Not hidden, Celebrated. One afternoon as I was watering the roses, the ones my husband and I planted 20 years ago, I heard his voice in my head, not as madness, but as memory. "Rose, I'm proud of you." And I cried, not from sadness, from peace. On the 90th day, a Tuesday in September, my phone rang at 9 a.m. It was Samuel. "Mom, it's been 3 months." "I know. Do you still want to get that coffee?" I looked out the window. The sky was blue. The birds were singing in the big tree out front. It was a beautiful day. "Yes, son, I want that coffee." "Can I pick you up? Or do you want to meet somewhere neutral?" I thought about that. My house wasn't a battlefield anymore. I didn't need to protect it from him. But I also knew I wasn't ready to have him here. Not yet. "Let's meet at the coffee shop by the park, the one near the church, at 11. "I'll be there." I got ready carefully, not to impress him, but out of respect for myself. Black pants, white blouse, the necklace my husband gave me, a little makeup. I got to the coffee shop 10 minutes early. I ordered a coffee and sat by the window. At 11 on the dot, I saw him arrive, walking from the bus stop. He didn't have a car anymore. He was wearing jeans and a simple work shirt. He had lost weight. He had dark circles. But something in his posture was different. He walked with his head held high, with the dignity of someone rebuilding his life from scratch. He came in. Our eyes met, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Humility. Real, not acted. Real. He sat across from me. He ordered a coffee. We were silent for a few seconds. "Thanks for coming," he said finally. "Thanks for keeping your word." "Did you get the deposits?" "Everyone. I'm going to keep paying, to the last penny, even if it takes me years." "I know." He took a sip of his coffee. His hands weren't those of an office worker anymore. They were rough, calloused. The hands of hard work. "Mom, I need you to know something. I didn't call you before because I needed to hit rock bottom. I needed to really understand what I did. And I couldn't do that while I was still making excuses, blaming others, playing the victim." "And do you understand now?" "Yes. I understand that I betrayed the person who loved me most in this world. That I put a woman who didn't love me above my own mother. That I signed your name on papers that could have left you on the street. That I was a bad son, a bad man, a bad person." His eyes filled with tears. "And I also understand that you didn't kick me out for revenge. You kicked me out of love, because if you didn't, I was going to keep sinking and take you with me." I nodded. I couldn't speak. The lump in my throat was too big. "Valerie left me a week after we moved," he continued. "Met some accountant who has his own house and a new car. She left without looking back. And you know what the worst part was? It didn't even hurt that much, because I knew. Deep down, I always knew. She never loved me. And I just clung to that illusion because I was afraid of being alone. And now I'm alone, but I'm not afraid, because I learned that being alone is better than being with the wrong people." I smiled through my tears. "That's a very big lesson, son." "I work at a garage. It's tough. I get tired. I come home with dirty hands and an aching back. But I like it. I like it because it's honest. Because I earn every penny with my own effort, not with lies, not with schemes. I'm proud of you." He broke. He cried. Right there in that coffee shop with people watching. My son cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. "Really, Mom? You're really proud?" "Yes, because you fell. But you got back up, and that's what matters." We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his life, the small but clean apartment, his co-workers at the garage, how he had started therapy too. The psychologist is helping me understand why I did what I did, the debts, the pressure, the fear of disappointing Valerie. But he's also teaching me that explanations aren't excuses. That understanding why I did something doesn't erase the damage I caused. That's very mature, Samuel. When we finished our coffee, we walked a little in the park, slowly, no rush. Mom, do you think someday we can be a family again? Not like before, because before was broken, but from something new. I stopped. I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that were just like his father's. Yes, son, I think so, but it's going to take time and effort, and a lot of honesty. I'm willing, for whatever it takes. Then let's start here, today, with this coffee. And in a month we'll have another one, and just like that, step by step, we'll rebuild what was broken. Would you let me visit you at the house someday? Not to stay, just for dinner, to see you, to hear about your life. I thought about that. My house, my refuge, my sacred space. Not yet, Samuel, but soon, when we're both ready. I understand. We said goodbye with a hug, a different kind of hug, not the hug of a son who takes, but of a son who is grateful. I watched him walk away, get on the bus, and leave, and I went back to my house with my heart full of something strange and wonderful. Hope. 3 months later it was December, the anniversary month of my husband's passing. Samuel called every week, short but meaningful conversations. He'd tell me about his progress. I'd tell him about my sewing classes, my trips with Eleanor, how the garden was blooming. The deposits kept coming, on time, without fail, and one day I dared. Samuel, would you like to come for dinner this Sunday? Silence on the other end. At the house. Yes, at home, I'm making your favorite soup. Mom, are you sure? I'm sure. And on Sunday, I spent the morning cooking. That chicken soup that Samuel loved since he was a kid. Handmade tortillas, red rice, beans, sweet bread for coffee. At 2 p.m, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. There was my son with a bouquet of flowers, white daisies, my favorite, and an expression between nervous and hopeful. Hi, Mom. Hi, son. Come in. He entered slowly, looking around the house as if seeing it for the first time. And in a way he was, because this was no longer the house where he had lived with Valerie. This was my house, reclaimed, redesigned, reborn. It looks beautiful, he said. It looks like it used to, when Dad was alive. Because now he is again, in a way. We ate in the dining room, the same table where thousands of family dinners had happened. But this time something was different. There was no tension. There were no lies. There were no masks. Just a mother and a son, relearning each other, forgiving each other. Starting over. After we ate, Samuel took an envelope out of his backpack. This is for you. I opened it. Inside was $500 in cash and a handwritten letter. Mom. This month I decided to give you the payment in person because I wanted you to see that it's not just money, it's my commitment, my promise that every day I'm trying to be better. I've saved a little extra. Not much, but something. And I want you to know that my goal is to pay you back for everything I spent, every dollar, down to the last cent of the wedding you paid for, the $18,000, plus the loan, everything. I don't know how many years it will take me, but I'm going to do it, because that's the only way I can prove to you that I've truly changed. I love you, Mom, and I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you, your son Samuel. I cried reading that letter, and when I finished, I got up and hugged my son. Tight, like I hadn't hugged him in a very long time. I don't need you to pay all of that back, son. But I need to do it, for my soul, for my peace. Then I will accept it, not because I need it, but because I know you need to. We spent the afternoon together, looking at old photos, remembering his dad, laughing at stories we had forgotten. And when the sun started to set, Samuel got ready to leave. Thank you, Mom, for giving me another chance. Thank you, son, for taking it. Can I come back? Next Sunday? You can come back whenever you want, as long as it's with honesty, as long as it's with respect. It will be. I promise." I watched him walk down the street. This time, not to a bus. He was walking, head high, shoulders straight. And I knew deep in my heart that my son was going to be okay, that I was going to be okay. That night before sleeping, I sat on my bed with my husband's photograph. "We did it, my love," I told him. "Our son got lost, but he found himself. And I got lost too, but I found myself." And I could have sworn that in the silence of the night I heard his voice. "I always knew you were stronger than you thought, Rose. I always knew." Samuel doesn't live with me anymore. He has his own life. His apartment is still small, but it's better decorated now. It has plants, it has books, it has hope. He got a better job, at a car dealership. He makes decent money, he saves, he pays his debts. We see each other every Sunday. Sometimes he comes to my house, sometimes I go to his. We cook together, we talk, we laugh, we heal. We haven't talked about Valerie. There's no need. That chapter is closed. And that's okay. The sewing classes are still going. My house is full of life every week, of women learning, of shared stories, of coffee and laughter. Eleanor and I are planning a big trip for next year, to Spain, to see the land of our grandparents. And I, at 69 years old, have learned the most important lesson of my life, that loving doesn't mean disappearing, that being a mother doesn't mean being a martyr, that defending your dignity doesn't make you a bad person, that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and that sometimes the greatest love you can give someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions. My son betrayed me. He hurt me. He broke my heart. But I didn't break. I rebuilt myself, stronger, wiser, more me, and that is the greatest victory of all. If you're listening to this story and you identify with any part of it, I want you to know something. It is never too late to defend yourself. It is never too late to get your dignity back. It is never too late to say, enough. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter who the person hurting you is, even if it's your own blood. Your life is yours. Your home is yours. Your peace is yours. And no one, absolutely no one, has the right to take it from you. I am Rose. I am 69 years old. I lost my husband. I almost lost my son. I almost lost my house. But I didn't lose myself. And that, in the end, is the only thing that really matters. If this story touched your heart, if you felt every word as if it were your own, leave me a comment telling me where you're listening from. Give this video a like so more people who need to hear this can find it. And subscribe to Elderly Stories, because every week I share real stories of brave women who refuse to be victims. Remember, true love never asks you to disappear. True love invites you to shine. Until the next story, and may you never forget your worth. End.